What's popping, everyone? Welcome to episode 52 of the Fleaflicker NFL Show. I'm your host, Uri Umar, and I'm once again, joined by my co-host, Amal Ronak. What's up, Amal?
What's up, Reeb? Lots to be talking about this week when it comes to these two championship games. I don't know why I said NFC. Two championship games happen between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers, and the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll go into that. And then after that, we'll give our Super Bowl predictions, of course. And then around the league, what news has been happening. We'll do the news last this time because there's a good amount to talk about when we're coming through with these last
games.
These last championship games of the year. So we can hop right into it.
Yeah, and I think we should start with the most irrelevant game of the week. And it's crazy because it was the championship weekend, but there was definitely an irrelevant game here, Amal. And it started off not
100%.
being irrelevant, but it didn't end that way. And so Kansas City hosted Buffalo, and Buffalo lost 24-38. And really, the biggest takeaway from this is that Kansas City is an expert when it comes to making us forget that they were losing by double digits at any point in the game, because they were down 9-0 in the first quarter, and then second quarter scored 21-3, and they just took the lead ever since, never looked back. And when you look at it, honestly, I think Josh Allen played decent, but when I just watched the game, it was just the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator. So he just able to rally his defenses late in the season, and he did this last year as well. The Kansas City Chiefs defense last year in 2020 or 2019, they were sort of average, and then late in the season they picked it up, and they were easily a top 10 to maybe even a top 8 defense in the league. And similarly, they did the same thing here. They literally had probably their best defensive performance of the game. Stephon Diggs completely sort of annihilated him from the game plan. I didn't really see Stephon Diggs do anything the entire game. I'll be straight up honest. I know he had 6 receptions, 77 yards, but it didn't look like it. He didn't have the impact on the game that Stephon Diggs normally does have. And it's kind of weird because if I look at like the Chiefs overall as a whole, their secondary, other than Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, who's literally like a perennial all-pro safety, they don't have a lot of like elite talent back there. But Steve Spagnuolo is able to coach these guys up. And I think I've doubted the Chiefs a lot for their offense, and because I thought there were stretches where they just performed really poorly, and that was questionable. But I've got to give them credits for their defense on this performance and in this game, because they were able to do something that I didn't think they could do, and which was shut down Josh Allen and this Chiefs high-flying passing game.
Yeah, so for me, I thought this game was exactly how I panned out. I'll be honest. I mean, I even predicted entering into this week that the Chiefs Bills game, I thought the gap was going to be wider than the Bucs Packers game, and that's exactly what happened. I thought Josh Allen would play maybe slightly better than he did the last time, and I thought he did play slightly better than he did the last time. Once again, led his team in rushing yards, 88 yards on the ground, 287 yards, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, Cole Beasley is playing. He's a warrior, man. Playing through. He had a broken fibula, and he's been playing through that injury. You can even see him. He exited the game quite a couple times too, and that was just amazing. He led the team in receiving yards. Stephon Diggs got 77 yards on 6 receptions. I can say he pretty much got shut down, man. I mean, he was I did not see a lot of Stephon Diggs this game. And people saying that he was like the best receiver on the field, I mean, hey man, I think Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill just proved why they clearly have the wide receiver advantage and the receiving corp advantage. And shout out to McCole Hardman as well. He had the muffed punt in the game as well, and that led, of course, to the Bills' only touchdown on the game. Only, I guess not only touchdown. They had another touchdown, but that led to a touchdown that drive, which led them the score to be 9-0 to end the quarter. And McCole Hardman bounced back, and he got a touchdown of his own. He had a 50-yard run as well on a sweep. Yeah, I think the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes showed up, and he got the job done. and now they're off to the Super Bowl. I think, like you said, even though you picked the Bills, this game was, I think, quite irrelevant because as good as Josh Allen is, I don't think he's still yet there on towards the remaining of the top. I guess the top three quarterbacks, top four quarterbacks. But he is right. He's very close to it, but it's just not there yet. And on top of that, I think the Bills are just not a better team than the Chiefs. Maybe
I think that's what this game came down to at the
yeah,
end
I
of
think
the
that
day.
honestly, because even the Chiefs' defense, they really stood out to me. I'm surprised by the way they performed out there, and yeah, 287 passing yards for Josh. I mean, this was the first time also Josh Allen threw a pick in the red zone. I didn't even see that happening, and yeah, it's just in general. I think I the Bills, they just have to step up their game at the end of the day, and the
Agreed.
Chiefs stepped up their game and they got the job done.
I have an honest question for you, Amal, right? If you take away Travis Kelsey from this Chiefs team, is there another offense that takes a bigger hit in the entire league? Because I just every time I watch Travis Kelsey, and he's not the greatest blocker. He's not like a prime Gronk who was, a well-rounded, could block, was an elite receiver and all that. But his receiving game is right up there. And when I watch Travis Kelsey, I just can't help but flashback to prime Gronk, where just multiple touchdowns. He's always open for a first down. Like he's just very almost his route running for someone of that size, 6'5", probably 250-ish. His route running for that size is bonkers. And then he has the size on top of it. He has the hands. He has speed. I mean, they used him on a shovel pass, I believe, again this game to score a touchdown. I think just overall, the key to this Chiefs offense, I know Patrick Mahomes is an amazing quarterback. And I know, especially on this show and amongst our friend group, I usually sort of talk shit about Patrick Mahomes and I sort of try to downplay his achievements. He is a great quarterback, but I've got to wonder without Travis Kelsey if this offense would be the same. And I think no, I'd say Travis Kelsey is probably the MVP of this offense just because I think he opens everything up. He opens up the short game, he opens up the mid game, and then he opens up the deep game with Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, all these guys. I've just got to give massive credit for Travis Kelsey, and I think he has a very legitimate chance to win the Offensive Player of the Year award. Because I mean, every time I watch the Chiefs, he's unguardable, and I don't think there's a guy like him in the league who's repeatedly just unguardable. Like I said, it's just prime Gronk, just a rerun of that where no one could cover him. You couldn't put a safety on him. You couldn't put a linebacker on him because a linebacker is too slow. A defensive back is not big enough, other than maybe Cam Chancellor, who is a freak of nature, who was a linebacker playing safety essentially. No one else has been able to cover Gronk and Travis Kelsey as well. And yeah, I mean, just my takeaway: Travis Kelsey is a freak.
Yeah, I think Travis Kelsey is a monster. Obviously, I mean MVP. I think normally we're always tending to say the quarterback, and obviously if Mahomes isn't playing and they put Chad Henne in, I think the same score would happen flipped. I think that's very fair to say
Mhm.
right? Obviously, but yeah, I think you do bring up a valid point. When the quarterback's on the field, I think Travis Kelsey is definitely the most valuable member on the team. Tyreek Hill, him and Kelsey, in my opinion, though, are on the same level of unguardable, man. I think I'm saying that only because it's not even just him as the receiver, obviously, because obviously as a receiver there are better overall receivers, but the speed is like generational speed. I think it's
Agreed.
just in-game speed. There are players obviously faster than Tyreek Hill. That's not the point. The point is
His
the
quick
in
area burst.
it's just the burst that he has, right? And I think that's what makes it completely unguardable. He's gonna have a day in the Super Bowl too. There's no doubt about it. Uh, I mean, I don't even want to. We'll talk about that when we bring up the preview of the Super Bowl coming up. But I mean, 9 receptions, 172 yards. That's incredible. And then Kelsey had 13 receptions for 118 yards, also and 2 touchdowns. That's incredible as well. I think if you're blessed if you have those two as your receiving targets. I think that's
Agreed. I don't think
it's
Mahomes even
incredible.
has to do anything spectacular. Like the amount of,
That's
and I've got to give credit to Andy Reid for this as well. The amount of pre-snap motion he can use and the way he uses screens and his running backs and Mecole Hardman. I mean, the Chiefs' entire draft strategy the last few years has just been to draft fast dudes and sign fast dudes to contracts and hope it works, because they have a guy who can move the sticks repeatedly and consistently with Travis Kelce. And all you got to do is toss screen. Like, I'll be honest, watching the Chiefs offense is kind of boring, because at some point it's just them being able to dump it off for like 5 yards and their player can take it like 50 because they're just faster than everyone else. And it's just the way that this Chiefs team has been built, the way Andy Reid calls plays, the way he brings out the fullest out of all these guys. Like Mecole Hardman, again, like he was a guy, second round pick coming out of 2019, and you didn't expect him to step up because you had Demarcus Robinson. You had Demarcus Robinson. You had Sammy Watkins, who was on a big deal. You have Tyreek Hill. You have all these running backs. I mean, at that point, I believe you had Kareem Hunt. You have Travis Kelce. But here you are. You're using Mecole Hardman to his full potential. And again, just the way he's able to use everyone to his full potential, the way he's developed Patrick Mahomes. I mean, is there any other situation, Amal, that we've ever seen other than maybe the Seahawks early in this century, or this decade rather, where a quarterback has been placed in a perfect situation to win? And I don't think there has been. And I've got to give credit to Andy Reid, not Steve Spagnuolo, but the Chiefs organization as a whole for doing that.
I think the only one that could probably top it was the Steelers team that Ben Roethlisberger had toward the tail end of his career. He had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, both number one at their position at the time. But the Steelers defense today isn't the same Steelers defense back then. And at the end of the day, that's the only reason why that team didn't work out. And Tom Brady was also in that conference. Peyton Manning was in that conference. That was another reason why, obviously, it did not work out. Mm-hmm. And I think in terms of, perfect fit. This is an incredible fit. I think Mahomes has definitely found a home here. That's why he signed that extension for $500 million. And I think you can expect great things out of the Chiefs for a long time. I mean, long term, obviously Kelce's getting old, so we'll see how that goes. But I appreciated how Kelce said, he said in a presser, I believe, that he believes Tyreek Hill is the most valuable player on that offense. And that's interesting too, because I mean, Tyreek Hill, as he's very good too, man. I mean, it can honestly go to any of those three guys, man. It's all very close for me. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Travis Kelce's the guy, and I think he'll show it also in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. So congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. We hoped, honestly. I like the Chiefs. I'm not going to say I'm a fan of them, but I definitely like the Chiefs. I did not want the Chiefs to repeat that, going back to back, because I always want to see some variety of teams getting in. Even if it's the damn Dallas Cowboys, I don't really care, as long as
I disagree on that.
I just want to see
an Eagles shirt.
No, but it's okay. The Cowboys aren't going to win the Super Bowl. That's the best part of Reed. The best is when they get there, they lose by a game-winning field goal. If that happens, that'll be the ultimate present. And I know that would be like the best present on earth. Going 0-16 is a close second. But anyways, I think definitely. I mean, you always want to see some new teams. So that's why I wanted Buffalo to win. But I picked the Chiefs, and the Chiefs once again back into the Super Bowl, and we wish them nothing but the best. We can move on.
Yeah, we can move on to the NFC conference. And this was, I want to say it was surprising, but I had a feeling the entire weekend leading up to it that Tom Brady, the GOAT, bro, he went into Lambeau, Aaron Rodgers' first home NFC championship game, and he won 31-26. And I think what it comes down to, there's a lot of things I want to talk about this game. And I think you can agree with me. This is a game that needs to be talked about more than any other game or the other game. The Bucs, what it came down to, the Bucs just had an elite defense that, like, on Sunday or yesterday. Yeah, they just had an elite defense flat out. That defense was able to control Devontae Adams for most of the game. They were able to make it harder. Their zone coverages, there was lots of plays, I watched them all, where there would be touchdowns or first downs. There was one play in particular where They used the tight end for the Green Bay Packers. Robert Tonyan was lined up as a blocker on the 2-yard line. And he sort of sifted across the formation, and that was a touchdown. They scored that exact play as a touchdown multiple times this season, and the Bucs were able to cover it. And that's what it came down to. This Packers team was the best team in the NFL going into finishing the season and going into this game when it came to converting in the red zone. And the Bucs made it a living hell, just flat out. They could not score touchdowns. They had to settle for field goals multiple times. And that's what ended up costing them the game. And there's definitely a topic and definitely some things to be said about the refs here. And I want to hear what you have to say about the refs, because late in this game, there was a pass interference called on Kevin King, the cornerback of the Green Bay Packers, that led to a first down for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and essentially allowed them to run out the clock and end the game. And again, that's one thing we can talk about. We can talk about Matt LaFleur's decision to not go for it on 4th down and settle for a field goal. But I want to hear your take on the refs as a first one of them all.
Yeah. Geez, man, you put me in a spot where I'm going to rant. I hate that. But first of all, I want to say congratulations to Tom Brady. It's
Agreed.
No small feat. I mean, 10 Super Bowls. I mean, people are talking crap about LeBron getting into the amount of championships he's gone into. He's 4 and 6. I mean, dude, shut up. He made it to 10. And Brady made it to 10. I mean, it's insane, man. And yeah, incredible stuff from him, man. And yes, he didn't have the best performance of the game, but I mean, that second half is probably the worst half of his career, honestly. I can't believe he threw 3 picks. And believe it's the first time in 20 years, Arib, that a quarterback has won. The quarterback's team has won when they've thrown 3 interceptions and a half. It like never happens. And but yeah, man, the Bucs came up to play, and Tom Brady came to play, and he got the job done. And it was also a great feeling to see Tom Brady with the son at the post game. Definitely a very touching moment there. And yeah, getting into this game though, Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, we talked about. I mean, we rarely talk about honestly the bias towards players in officiating. We actually don't talk about it. We should be talking about it way more when it comes to like guys like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and back in the day, guys like Peyton Manning would be getting it. I mean, Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, Steve Young even got it. I mean, the ref bias is absolutely crazy here in this game. But I'll be honest, man, the elite of the elite quarterbacks, I guess, just get the calls their way. But I thought Aaron Rodgers is also there that way. But I guess not, man. I thought
Tom Brady gets that treatment over Rodgers.
I mean, I maybe that's the case because I mean, but even throughout his career though, Reeb, I don't see Aaron Rodgers the guy to get crazy amounts of calls. Like I've never ever I never thought about it that way, mainly because the weapons Aaron Rodgers has had in the past 5 years isn't the best outside of obviously Devontae Adams. So like when the PI call comes towards him, it's so obvious. It's clear as day. But like when you have guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling or these nobodies like Equanimeous St. Brown on your team, I think that's like another sign of like why, like just why. And just in this game, there's so much to talk about Packers, man. But first thing I do want to say, I think this game goes 100% on Matt LaFleur. I think Aaron Rodgers definitely on 3rd and goal could have ran it in. I don't know if he would have gotten the touchdown.
I disagree with you on that.
I don't know if he would have got the touchdown. I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet. I don't think he would have got the touchdown. I think the throw was okay. I'm just saying he could have ran it. I don't know if he would have gotten any. I don't know if he got the touchdown. I don't think he would have. I think it would have been short still. But if he ran it, it would have been a closer 4th down, and that would have inclined the coach to go for it. Fair. All fair games there, right? This game was on Matt LaFleur, 100%. I think that you can't have it's just like mathematically, it didn't make any sense. They did analytics on this. you had a 9.5% chance of winning the game when if you go for it, right? If you hit the field goal, you have a 10% chance of winning the game. So you're telling me that you didn't go for it because you had a 0.5% chance. You just on pure data analytics. You'd rather have I mean, it literally made no sense not going for it there, because you'd have to get the touchdown anyways. We've talked about this so many times throughout that game. It was so frustrating. And I mean, it's
The score
Aaron
was
Rodgers.
31-23 at
And
the
and,
time.
and yeah, the score ended up the score was 31-23 at the time, and they went for the field goal, so the game was 31-26. But you have the MVP of the league. Like, if you don't trust the MVP of the league, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And honestly, if Aaron Rodgers didn't make that throw, you can live with that. I'll be honest. And honestly, I think the Packers would have gotten the ball back, because you're now in the back. You're backed up in the Tampa Bay end zone, and they're going to be forced to run the ball, because they're not going to. It's going to be a
Agreed.
running game there, and they're going to get the ball back. So that had to have been the move, in my perspective. Even pressure on the line, I don't care. I would have made that call. And I think almost 85% of America would have made the same call that I'm thinking of. And that's just give the ball to Aaron Rodgers, let him dial up his own damn play. And watching the Aaron Rodgers interview, I know you watched it right before we entered on this podcast, and dude, I
have a
just felt
whole
so,
segment for that right after this, Amal. I've
yeah,
got a lot to say, and I'm sure you do as well.
dude. I mean, it's just insane. You
It's
can get it.
heartbreaking.
You'll get into it after me, but oh my goodness, just like the nonsense that he's been put through. I do want to say first, though, I mean, the Packers defense, they stepped it up in the third and fourth quarter, man. I mean, I don't know what to even say, man. They really played well. Adrian Amos, for
Ball
some
Hawks.
reason, I don't know. Adrian Amos got burned a couple times, but dude, Adrian Amos stepped up. Uh, Jair Alexander stepped up, of course, with the 2 picks. Tom Brady threw some garbage passes, but I think that's age. I think that genuinely is age.
In
I
the
don't think.
cold, catching it to him.
I'll be dead honest. I think Tom Brady even 2 years ago wouldn't make those type of throws. Yeah, and I think that's just age coming in. But dude, I think Kevin King, dude.
There was one key play. I think going into halftime, there was 2 seconds left on the clock in the second quarter, and the Kevin King has one responsibility.
The moron had
It's to cover
one
that.
job. He had one job, Arif.
And
One job.
if he doesn't allow that touchdown, right? If he plays good coverage on Scotty Miller, and for those of you who don't know, it was like a 50-something yard touchdown to Scotty Miller, to a 39-yard touchdown pass to Scotty Miller, like, who's a rookie wide receiver, to essentially, I think, make the game 24-10 going into half, or 21-10 going into halftime. If you take that touchdown off, and I know, again, that's just purely hypothetical, but if you take that off, the Packers win the game, at least score-wise. They would have won the game. It's just lots of weird sort of nuances and little details that I feel like the Packers didn't get right. They didn't like, if we think about the last time Tom Brady lost a key playoff game, I'm not counting the Tennessee Titans, who beat them last year, but in the Super Bowl 2017, Doug Peterson, who was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles at that time, who won that Super Bowl, he was aggressive for fourth down. He went for it multiple times. He called a trick play on fourth down to score a touchdown. He called late in that game a fourth down on their side of the field, that like their 35 or 40-yard line. He went for it on fourth down to sort of, I mean, he went for it on fourth down. He had to be aggressive because he knew that you have the GOAT on the other side, and you can't keep stopping him forever. You've got to be aggressive to beat these greats. You've got to be aggressive to beat Tom Brady. You've got to be aggressive to beat Patrick Mahomes, because you only get so many chances. And the fact that Matt LaFleur couldn't do that, again, you can own that up to him being a young coach, but at some point, Amal, like, you've just got to wonder. And Aaron Rodgers, from his press conference, he was asked some questions about this. He was asked, like, was it a right decision? And he said it wasn't my decision, but the way he said it and his entire demeanor around that.
He didn't back the call. Yeah,
you could tell he didn't. You could
like tell it. He didn't, dude. No, he definitely did not want that, man. He knew even then that he didn't want that call. Come on now, it's insane that the call that was made, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I could even be like Stephen A. and doing a rant on this. It's ridiculous That I mean, you can tell by just the pure demeanor of his face and his mood. He did not want to be there, man. And I mean, I guess you can talk now about like what you really thought of that, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah, a few key things about this game though. I've got to give. I think the biggest difference was I think the Bucs were just a better team overall. I think you can agree with me on that one. But that comes to two aspects of the game. The defense of the Bucs was just far superior, at least early
Way
on in
better.
this game, right?
Yeah.
And second, the offensive lines and David Bakhtiari injury, who's the left tackle of the Green Bay Packers, that definitely had an impact. And it's funny because the entire sort of NFL world overlooked that injury. They said the Packers had the depth. They have players, Elton Jenkins, Billy Turner, who can go in and fill in that position and play good enough football where it won't matter. And you can clearly see Jason Pierre-Paul, who the defensive pass rusher for the Buccaneers, Shaquille Barrett, another pass rusher who led the league in sacks, I believe, last year. Both of them just had a field day. And on the opposite side, Tom Brady had almost no pressure the entire game. You had these great pass rushers, Rashawn Gary, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Mike Daniels. No, not Mike Daniels. The other guy, I can never remember his name, but the other defensive tackle. There's lots of star players on this Packers pass rush, and they couldn't get the job done. They couldn't apply pressure to Tom Brady, and that's the key to beating Tom Brady in his old age. You got to put pressure on him. He's not as mobile as he once was. He can't sort of navigate the pocket the same way, and you got to put pressure on him, and they couldn't. And just flat out, that's what happened. And Rodgers played a better game than Tom Brady, flat out. Lots of people are saying, you know what, Rodgers, he chokes in big moments. I don't think
He had a better
choked.
game. He had a better game. He had a
and
way
you
better
could argue you could have run there, but he made multiple great passes. He was vintage Aaron Rodgers this entire game. He led the team back to for a comeback, and they had an opportunity to tie the game, and the coach didn't go for it. And I just want to talk about the refs real quickly. The refs,
Yes.
the refs
Yeah.
had weird call. Okay, so for the Packers side, there are multiple instances, and the commentators for this game were Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and they sort of played it off, saying that the refs are letting the wide receiver and the corners play today. They're just letting them do whatever they want. And there was lots of times where there were literal face masks on players like Aaron Jones, the running back of the Green Bay Packers. There were multiple holding calls, and there was a holding call by Sean Murphy Bunting, the cornerback for the Bucs, on Allen Lazard.
He was holding the entire game, bro.
It led to a direct pick that changed the game, and that was not called. And it just seemed very weird that, again, Tom Brady got preferential treatment. But I've got to say, great teams can overcome the refs. And the Packers just were not a great team overall today.
Yeah, I think the Bucs were the better team that day. I mean, I still believe the Packers are a better team, man.
Three picks, and they got 6 points off of it, off of 3 picks.
Yeah, I think that's where,
and you couldn't make it. And I know the refs were bad, and people would say the refs were the number one reason why they lost, or Matt LaFleur was, or whatever it was. But that, when it comes down to it, basically they just couldn't execute, and they couldn't overcome the refs. Like the refs, you can use them as excuses. There's times where one game that stands out, 2018, the NFC Championship game, it was between the Rams and the Saints, and there was a really, really clear and evident PI on Nickel Roby-Coleman of the Rams against, I think it was Traquan Smith, the wide receiver for the Saints. And that one is a no call, and the Saints ended up losing the game in overtime. But the thing is, the Saints, they had a chance in overtime. Drew Brees got the ball back, and they couldn't win the game.
Exactly. That's
and
the same thing I was going to say.
Aaron Rodgers, and I don't want to say Aaron Rodgers had a bad game. Aaron Rodgers had his chances, and they couldn't capitalize as a team. I know some people are trying to say you can't keep trying to deflect blame from Aaron Rodgers, but he played a good game. We both said this. He played a good game. And when it came down to it, he couldn't get protection. His wide receivers were being held, and he did the best he could. They played
the Aaron Jones fumble was big too, man. Aaron Jones was held out of the game. Actually, he fumbled the ball twice. Luckily for the first one, there was Robert Tonyan recovered it. And it was the same type of fumble too, by the way. I mean, it was kind of sad. The second one, he got hit hard, and he actually got ruled out for the rest of the game. He didn't play a single snap afterwards. So yeah, losing your Pro Bowl running back does hurt, and definitely that fumble led to points on the Buccaneers side. So yeah, that definitely hurted Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did have his chances. Three, like you said, three turnovers, three takeaways.
For this Packers defense.
Yeah, for the Packers defense, and only one touchdown led from that. I mean, I think that speaks multitudes, honestly, of how great the Bucs defense played. Shaq Barrett, dude, Shaq Barrett's a monster, man. We said that last year. Shaq Barrett's a monster. 3 sacks on the game. JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, monster on the game. I mean, they're insane how they performed. Whitehead had the 2 forced fumbles. Monster in the game.
Devin White is a monster who is extremely underrated.
Devin White, like that's what I'm saying. Like I think the defense just stepped up, man. I think that's all you can really say. Coverage in this game was trashed by the Bucs. I think, being dead honest, Sean Murphy Bunting, I think he legit was holding the whole game. I can firmly believe that, and I have no problem. What's it called? Backing up that case. I think he was honestly holding the entire game. Even that pick Aaron Rodgers had, it was a pass that he held and got into the position of making the pick. It was clear as day. And yeah, man, I think at the end of the day, those BS calls that were made for the Buccaneers, I think that obviously changed and altered the results. But at the end of the day, Matt LaFleur wasn't coaching well. And I'm not going to say it's only because of that last drive, but I think throughout the game, I just wasn't a fan. I just wasn't a fan of the coaching that was happening. And the running game needs to get better, obviously. 16 carries for 67 yards on the game. I think they could have, honestly, Heike could have just abandoned the run the whole game, and that would have probably even been better. Obviously, you couldn't run the ball a lot when you're down, so that's fair. But great comeback by Aaron Rodgers. They could have capitalized the comeback, so I'm going to hold him for that. But overall, yeah, this is just, I think if you're a Packers fan, this has to be a very, very sad sad loss. I think
as a fan of football, though, I've got to say, I'm happy we got at least one of these games was a truly elite game. And I'm glad that it was this Packers game. And even though the result that I think almost everyone wanted, like no one wanted to see Tom Brady in another Super Bowl. We appreciate his greatness, but we didn't want to see it. But
the overall, I feel bad, man. I feel bad though. Aaron Rodgers, dude, this honestly might have been his best chance to win. And it definitely, obviously Bakhtiari will be healthy. They probably will have the same exact team next year too. Probably bring back like Corey Linsley back. But I think, dude, I mean, if now we're going to get into the next topic of, is Aaron Rodgers going to freaking leave? We'll probably talk about that. We can probably talk about that next week, because next week there's going to be no games. But we'll talk about like the different free agency guys, the options that are definitely
I think
out
it's definitely something we need to talk about right now, Amal.
I mean, it's a hot topic, man. It's a very hot
topic right now.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers, right? So Aaron Rodgers has lost his 4th straight NFC Championship game, and after this game, the press conference, he was just extremely deflated, and he had comments such as saying like, I'm just pretty gutted after this loss. And he did say like the calls were bad and all that. But at the end of the day, he was just sort of like, he just seemed depressed, like just flat out. I know depressed is a strong word, but he talked about how this quote, word for word quote, almost lots of futures are up in the air and are unknown, mine included. So he talked about players like Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones, guys that he really loves on the team that they might not be there. And he even admits, I might not be there. Aaron Rodgers might not be there. And I think we've seen a similar situation almost in the guy who beat him on the opposite sideline, Tom Brady, where he sort of also was like last season, he was sort of up in there after he lost in the playoffs, sort of like, yeah, I mean, my future's sort of up in the air. We'll see what happens. My future is unknown. And we saw what Tom Brady did. He was on a team, the Patriots, who were not the best fit for him. They didn't have the best. They did have a good defense, but they didn't put players around Tom Brady on offense. They didn't have the same old line they once had. They didn't have elite wide receivers. They didn't have elite tight ends. They didn't really have playmakers on the offense. And Tom Brady saw that. He's like, I'm an old guy. I've got to, go to a team that will appreciate me and use me to my fullest potential. And he moved to Tampa Bay. And guess what? He's in Tampa Bay. He has, I'd say we can almost say an elite offensive line. In the run game, pass blocking game. This offensive line was one of the biggest questions going into the season, and they're able to protect Tom Brady. They're able to help him get the ball into his playmakers, and he's in the Super Bowl because of it. He was in the Super Bowl because he realized this relationship with the Patriots is not working out. And even though you could say he was the loyal guy, he was the loyal boyfriend. He made tons of sacrifices, took less contract money. There's lots of things that Tom Brady did where other players like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they took big paydays, but Tom Brady was like, no, I'll take my L here and my money and to do it so that we can build a better team. He compromised. And after a while, he realized I can't compromise anymore. I've got to move on and find a better life partner. And he moved on and found the better girl with the Bucs. And I think Aaron Rodgers could very much learn from that sort of lesson from Tom Brady and the guy on the opposite sideline, where he's been on the Packers for so long. And for the longest time, he had an incompetent head coach. He had an incompetent defense. And now finally it seems to be working. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be working because they're capped at the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, exactly. They can't. They've been in the same spot too many times, man.
And there was one key thing he said that I think I was looking through Packers media, and he said something like along the lines of where he thanked all the reporters, and it was just sort of like a very somber moment. He was like, "I appreciate you guys for doing a great job." And I've seen lots of press conferences and very rarely does someone sort of thank the reporters at the end of the season conference or the press conference. And it just seemed very odd that he did that. And again, it might be trying to dig into something that might not have anything behind it, but it just seemed like, I don't know, he might have very well played his last snap with the Packers. Like, he has leverage. I'd say he has leverage on the team because he is a great player. If he doesn't want to play, then you've got to get value for him. And I don't know. What are your quick thoughts on this? Because we came up with a list of teams where we'd like to see Aaron Rodgers go, and including Green Bay as a total, there are 3 teams on that list. But I just want to see your reaction to the Aaron Rodgers press conference and just sort of the somber mood around him as a whole.
Yeah, I think overall, Aaron Rodgers didn't look happy, man. I think that's the simple fact of it. I think he didn't want to beat around the bush. Just say, I have to regroup, I have to rethink look around all my options. I think we may have seen the last of Aaron Rodgers, but even if he wants out, it's going to be very difficult for the Packers to get that to want to move on from him. They could be like the same similar situation with like James Harden, where it'll take some time, maybe even play next season with the Packers, and get them to realize that. Because I mean, the disrespect that he's had, man. I mean, you sign the guy long term, then about a year or two later, you draft Jordan Love. I mean, in the first round, crazy
Could
stuff
be the
there.
backup quarterback
And then
him eventually.
he played his heart out, right? I mean, he didn't even have a say in the head coach, by the way. That was another problem I had too. Matt LaFleur was a brand new head coach that the president of the Packers decided to have, and just so happened that was the coach. Aaron Rodgers had to get with it, and it sucks, man. I think he could have been way more involved. If he was way more involved with the franchise, he's a lifetime Packer for sure. And I don't think Jordan Love was the pick. I think they would have picked a wide receiver, which was the obvious pick. They didn't pick a wide receiver in the draft class at all. I thought it was just to piss off Aaron Rodgers. Then they realized, okay, we do need a receiver. Let's trade for Will Fuller in the deadline. Then the Will Fuller trade falls through, and then now Deshaun Watson, obviously Deshaun Watson would have been pissed, but that trade fell through. The Packers are still in the same position as they were after the deadline. They are still an elite team, number 1 in the NFC. Bravo. Aaron Rodgers wins MVP. If he didn't play in the MVP level, the Packers would have probably been like like 11-5. I think that you could probably say that. But Aaron Rodgers played very well. He had a great season, one of the best seasons in his career. Wins his third MVP. And when it came to the playoff games, I think Matt LaFleur I think the coaching was a problem there. I think he wasn't given the reins to do what he wants, man. At the end of the day, that was the difference between the Bucs and the Packers. Tom Brady was literally chose the team that he wanted. He wanted Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Bruce Arians didn't want Antonio Brown. He said it multiple times, even during the damn season. We didn't want Antonio Brown. We don't want that headache, that nonsense. I don't want it. Gronk, that's literally Tom Brady's guy. He can call him anytime. Even if he's 45, Gronk's going to come play with him. It's literally the same. He chose the shots. He wanted an O-line, got the O-line that he wanted. Defense stepped up big time. Got an all-pro wide receiver in Gronk. AB, got one of the greatest tight ends of all time in Rob Gronkowski. Done.
Team listened to him.
The team listens to Tom Brady. Obviously, the Bucs were already in a shitty situation before that, right? That's fair. 7-9. They had already a quarterback that led the league in touchdowns. Fair. So they have to just cope into whatever Tom Brady says. Okay, fine. But the Packers were just there. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. Do you really think their goals? Do you think their goal really was entering into this year? Their goal was just to match their performance? Hell no. They, at least if you're gonna go to the Super Bowl, at least okay. If you're finished number 2, I'm gonna cut him some slack there. They made it to the same damn spot. I mean, honestly, it's just as bad as the Niners game. At least the Niners game, they got blown out, no chance, whatever.
And that game should have been a lesson of all. Last year, the 2019 NFC Championship game, the Packers should have learned from that. They lost 37-20, I believe.
They got
a blowout. And they should have realized, you know what? Instead of trying to think about the future, clearly our team is good enough to get here. We just need to sort of break through the wall, get some help for our quarterback, draft some wide receivers, or, maybe draft a player who can help us win now. Draft a corner, for God's sakes, who's better than Chandon Sullivan and Kevin King, who are the corners on the Packers. But instead, they decided to draft for the future at a time where I think it was their Super Bowl window. Like, if any team should have been drafting for the future, it should have been the Saints, right? The New Orleans Saints, where their quarterback was actively falling apart, and he's been falling apart and on the decline for the last 2 seasons. And even then, they went all in. The last 2 seasons, they drafted Marcus Davenport. They traded up for a pass rusher in the first round to try to help their quarterback and help capitalize in your Super Bowl window. And I feel like the Packers have failed to do that. And because of that, and that's something that Tom Brady dealt with as well in New England, where Bill Belichick had roster control. And obviously Bill Belichick is a GOAT. You can't sort of,
he picked Jimmy G second round. Yeah.
I mean, you can question him, but at the same time, he's won 6 Super Bowls. But when it comes down to it, they didn't let Tom Brady do what he wanted to do. And they didn't capitalize on what should have been a Super Bowl window. They went to the future, and Tom Brady was like, you know what, I'll leave. And Aaron Rodgers very much could do the same thing. And I think we've hampered. We've talked about this topic a bit, but there's a few teams, and I've got 3 teams total that I think are going to have Aaron Rodgers. First one is going to be obviously the Packers, because the Packers currently have all the rights to him.
Exactly.
Right? But I think there's 2 other teams, and let's talk about your team first. And by your team, I mean literally your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Indianapolis Colts, who the Indianapolis Colts, according to SpotTrack.com, they are second, I think, in the league when it comes to cap space.
Yes, sir. Yep. I think
they're second with $68 million. So if they wanted to trade for Aaron Rodgers, they could. And they clearly don't have
2 Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Phillip Rivers retired. We talked about that last week. And now they have sort of
Jacoby Brissett hit free agency. Yep.
They have an opening in the quarterback room. And I mean, you can talk about this Colts team and their strengths, their weaknesses, and why you think they're a perfect fit, because you are the Colts expert.
Yeah. So there's obviously 2 quarterbacks that come into mind when it comes to the Colts this offseason in terms of the trading options. I think first is obvious. I mean, actually there's 3, there's a bunch, but I mean, realistically, I mean, you have to rule out Deshaun Watson. If the Texans trade with Deshaun Watson to us, I mean, that's like a match made in heaven. But I think they'd be stupid. It's like the Rodgers trade getting traded to the Bears. That's a perfect fit.
Or the Lions.
Allen Robinson would stay there in a heartbeat. But come on now, if you are you really expecting that? All right, so you can rule out the Bears for the Rodgers, and you can rule out the Watson thing for them. Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers are the two ideal fits for the Colts right now, and I'm going to talk about why Rodgers especially is the perfect fit. I think Rodgers, he'll have the best offensive line he's ever had, obviously, and you could see Philip Rivers' numbers, who's playing on his last year. He had the best quarterback. He had one of the best years out of any quarterback right before they retire, man. And incredible stuff. He looked great, and Rodgers is just honestly twice as good as him. So just imagine the output there. The defense, you have a top 10 defense. The Packers defense, they have good players, but they also have really, really bad players that for some reason they don't want to replace. So maybe if the Packers do listen to the Aaron Rodgers this offseason, you should stay with the Packers. But you have Chris Ballard, who's probably, if not the best, one of the best general managers in all football.
And I'd say he'd listen to Aaron Rodgers.
And he'd 100% listen to Aaron Rodgers. He was listening to Andrew Luck, man. He would do anything right now just for him to come back. But he respects him. He respected the decision, so he's still off. And even for Philip Rivers, got the weapons they needed, and they were very competitive in the wild card round. He has young receivers. Michael Pittman Jr., I think, is going to have a great season in his second year. T.Y. Hilton had a great second half of the season. I think he had a very slow start, but I think he's going to come back, and he'll have a great great year with Aaron Rodgers, of course. And I think coaching, Frank Reich will listen 100%. He's the quarterback guy. Frank Reich, he was a quarterback, right? He out of all people knows that he'll listen to the quarterback. He'll respect anything. And if there's a guy that will go for it on fourth down, Reeb, I'm literally talking to you here. If there's a guy that'll ever go for fourth down, it's Frank Reich. And Frank Reich learned that. Doug Peterson and Frank Reich learned that from who?
Andy Reid.
Exactly. That's all I'm trying to say. I think in terms of just pure fit, I think that has to be it, man. And obviously I think the Colts will probably go after another receiver, just because I don't think Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, those guys are all like tier 3 receivers. I think respectfully, they have to be. They're not like stars yet. They're not all stars. They're not Pro Bowl caliber, although they have potential to be. T.Y. Hilton was that, and then he's now old now. So obviously I think they would go after like an Allen Robinson or a Kenny Galladay or a Juju Smith-Schuster or that type of receiver during the offseason. But like I'm saying, I think that would be the perfect move, I think, in terms of fit. And I know the third team that you do have is his home team. You can probably talk about that.
Yeah, and similarly with what you said, where you think that Chris Ballard, the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, would listen to Aaron Rodgers, compared to what Brian I think his name is Gutekunst, who is the GM currently for the Packers, who is obviously not listening to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you wanted to capitalize on the Super Bowl window, you would have drafted a player who wouldn't be sitting on the bench in Jordan Love. And I just think my dream team would be the San Francisco 49ers. And they made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. And people might say currently, you know what? They have a quarterback already. They have a guy in Jimmy Garoppolo. They're paying him a ton of money, right? And I thought this as well, but I did some research, and they can actually cut Jimmy Garoppolo right now today, and they'd save $23 million in cap space. They could easily afford Aaron Rodgers if they needed to, and they'd only have $2.8 million in dead cap. So which is nothing compared to the $25 million contract that they're currently paying Jimmy Garoppolo. And if you ask me right now, if I would trade Jimmy Garoppolo for Aaron Rodgers, I would do it in a heartbeat without question. I get it. Aaron Rodgers is 37. He's going to be 38 when the next season starts. But when it comes down to it, he's just a far better player. He's a Hall of Fame player, and Jimmy Garoppolo can't get the best out of this San Francisco's 49ers offense. And also they have an elite, and when I say elite, I mean an actual elite offensive mind in Kyle Shanahan, who has in the last 5 years, he's made 2 of the last 5 Super Bowls. One as an OC for one of the best offenses I've ever seen in the 2016 Atlanta Falcons. And then another one as a head coach as the 2019 San Francisco 49ers. And similar to Andy Reid, he knows how to get the best out of everything. He knows how to get the best out of literally every single running back who steps foot into that organization, whether it be Jerick McKinnon, whether it be Matt Breida, whether it be the new guy. I'm forgetting his name. The guy
Jeffrey Wilson.
Jeffrey Wilson. The guy who's always hurt now too. Who ran
Raheem
all over the
Mostert.
Raheem Mostert. Yeah, like he knows how to get the best out of his running backs. And then he uses all of his wide receivers as not just wide receivers, but offensive weapons. And there are lots of dump off paths, lots of very much Kansas Chiefian sort of philosophies, if that's a word. He knows how to get the best out of this team. And thirdly, they have a great defense. They have Nick Bosa, who was hurt. They have Eric Armstead, D Ford, who is another star player who used to play for the Chiefs. They have, the offensive line is good there. Mike McGlinchey, George Kittle's there, Javon Kinlaw, Brandon Ayuk, Fred Warner, who is right up there with one of the best linebackers in the NFL. They're just stacked at every single position of them all. And honestly, without the injuries, this Niners team probably would have made it to the Super Bowl this year.
They were favorites to make it out of the
when it came down to injuries at quarterback, at tight end, pretty much injuries everywhere. But like they could easily do, they have an offensive mind, right? They have an offensive mind. They can protect Aaron Rodgers. They have a great defense, which is something Aaron Rodgers currently does not have in Green Bay. And fourthly, they have a guy in John Lynch who is actually eligible for the Hall of Fame this year as a safety. So shout out to him, who was a phenomenal player. Sadly, I never got to watch him because he's before my time. But John Lynch, I think he's another guy who would very much listen to Aaron Rodgers. He would take mine as a player, I'm sure he knows what a player wants as a former player. And I'm sure he would definitely listen to Aaron Rodgers, which is something what we've harped on multiple times that the Packers are not willing to do. And if I were betting money, I would say that Aaron Rodgers would stay in Green Bay this year. But look out, at least in 2022, where I think this Niners team would probably be equally as good, maybe slightly less good because, contracts, things in the
Richard Sherman, I think, is probably going to leave.
Richard Sherman might leave, retire, and another Hall of Famer right there. But when it comes down to it, if I had a dream situation, I would choose the 49ers, and the Colts again are very much up there. But those are my two favorite teams for Aaron Rodgers. And I think when it comes down to it, forget the roster talent, forget offensive mind, forget willing to go for on fourth down. They're both teams that were willing to listen to Aaron Rodgers. And that's just not something that the Packers are willing to do. They're not willing to build around Aaron Rodgers and capitalize on a Super Bowl window. And it just asinine them all that's happened.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this before. I obviously want him to be on the Colts, but, the Niners, I think, may even be the more perfect fit. I think he was a born and raised San Francisco 49ers fan. He was grown up there. He was grown up seeing the Niner Stadium, seeing going to the games. Yeah, seeing Joe Montana, Steve Young, those guys play. But I think just the fact that, dude, they're a quarterback away. And I told the Reeb this before the podcast started. They're a quarterback away from I genuinely believe this. They would not lose a single game. I don't think they would lose a single game, barring injuries, of course, but they would not lose a single game if Aaron Rodgers was quarterback of the San Francisco Niners. With the current lineup they have today, there's not a chance they lose a single day. George Kittle, as great as Devontae Adams is, and Robert Tonyan, I guess, but George Kittle and Aaron Rodgers is a nightmare made in heaven.
And he's never had a star tight end either.
It's insane. George Kittle and Aaron Rodgers would make diamonds, bro. It's insane. I think that would be nuts. They have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk on the other side too. I mean,
and I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted another big-bodied guy.
And then if they draft another receiver, let's say if they draft I don't know, Rondale Moore out of Purdue, or like a Rashad Bateman, or if they somehow maybe get like a Jalen Waddle. If they get
Collins or another, even third, I think, what's his name? The guy out of LSU. I think his name is Terrence Marshall, who's a very big-bodied 6'4" wide receiver, which is something that the Niners currently don't have on the outside. If they could get something like that, and even forget about that, they have Kendrick Bourne, who is probably
He played
better than,
well.
yeah, I mean, he's better than almost every single Colts wide receiver outside of Pittman and Ty. So
Exactly. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. That's true. Yeah.
yeah, I just think there's a lots of good things that, I mean, there's just the 49ers as a whole
That being said, though,
story there. It would be there.
I think, like you said, though, I think the difference is that GM Chris Ballard would listen to whatever Aaron Rodgers said. So if Aaron Rodgers is saying, "Yo, get me this receiver, get me that receiver," obviously receiver is a need. We're gonna get that damn receiver, and we're gonna get that
Same thing
job
with
done.
John Lynch.
And I
I
think
would
that's
be
the
that
same
as
thing that's
well.
gonna happen with John Lynch. John Lynch, exactly. So if
And can we say
Kenny
confidence?
Galladay's hitting the market, Kenny Galladay's hitting the market. If Kenny Galladay,
The wide receiver
I
for the
mean,
Lions.
this is just insane. This would probably be the most stacked team of all time. If Kenny Galladay goes to the Niners and somehow they trade Aaron Rodgers too, I mean, that would be Megatron Matt Stafford 2.0.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's game over. That team's not losing.
Exactly.
I'd put all my money that they wouldn't lose. Just in general, Kenny Galladay, even on the Packers, I don't think they would lose a game either. If Kenny Galladay was put on the Packers with Devontae Adams, they're not losing a game either. But I think it just goes to the fact that Aaron Rodgers just needs control. That's the bottom line baseline of all this conversation.
Not even control.
Trading.
He needs to be listened to and built around.
But I think control is the main thing here, because control, he needs to. Brady controlled the team. I mean, as much as the GM does his job, Brady got the players that he wanted. That's why I'm saying control. Listen to is also true, but he's not even doing that. So I think that's a first step, maybe getting listened to. But he needs that. I mean, the dude is a superstar. He is the best quarterback I have ever seen. And I mean, obviously, in the all-time picture, his legacy, I should say, definitely hurts that he's lost 4 straight NFC Championship games. But I mean, the dude is he's a remarkable quarterback. He's probably still going to be a remarkable quarterback for the next 3-4 years. So if the Niners I'd trade anything in this world just to win another Super Bowl. So I think the Niners or the Colts would definitely do that. So, I mean, I think those are the two fits. We talked about the Rams, obviously, too, but I don't think they'd give up on Jared Goff that easily.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Rams have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, 2 elite receivers, 2 great receivers. I don't know about elite, but 2 great receivers. They have the best defense in football. That's another great fit, obviously. So, I mean, I think right now, if you're not Deshaun Watson's he's on the trade block, obviously. So, unless you're I think the only teams that don't really need a quarterback are the Chargers. The Chargers don't need one because of Herbert. I think the Bengals don't need one. I think the Jags are going to draft Trevor Lawrence, so you can rule that one out.
The Jets are going to draft someone to stay with Darnold.
The Jets are probably going to draft either Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or keep Sam Darnold. So it's definitely going to be one of those options. So the Jets are ruled out, or they trade for Deshaun Watson. So the Jets are ruled out. I think the Jets will have their quarterback situation figured out, and it won't be Aaron Rodgers. So you can rule out the Jets. Bills, you can obviously rule out. The Chiefs, you can rule out. The Seahawks, you can rule out. And honestly speaking, I think outside of those,
are interesting, but
they'll
have money for it.
And the Bucs are ruled out because they have Tom Brady. Outside of those 8 teams, there's 30 teams, and then there's 32 teams, right? Outside of those 8 teams, Reed, just genuinely speaking, the rest of the 24 should target Aaron Rodgers. I think you have to, because the dude is just too good. He's simply on another level, man. I mean,
best quarterback I've ever.
He's the best quarterback ever. I mean, Tannehill's playing great. If Rodgers was on the Titans, just saying, like, even Tannehill's a good quarterback, but you have to you have to rethink your quarterback situation when you're having the best quarterback in football right now
on the market, and he's not on the market currently. I'd bet money he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think
if I were Rodgers,
I
would internally. This is just something we both think that he would be feeling inside, that he would want to be moved.
He's already said he wouldn't. He won't stay. He won't stay. I think after
And
his
he says he
contract,
won't end his career with the
yeah.
Packers.
I think his contract expires in what, 4 years, 5 years. I feel bad the guy got screwed with that contract, but he's there for 5 years, right? 5 more years, 4 more years.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's basically till he's like 42. But I doubt he'll stay the rest of that. But if he does, if he's there for that long, he's gonna have like the last 2 years like Brady on another team. But yeah, I think that's just the gist of that situation, man.
Yep.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of things. There's a couple news items we can talk about, and also I think for a Super Bowl preview, I think we can do a brief overview, maybe like our quick predictions. But I think next week is where we should have a deep Super Bowl dive, as because there's probably not going to be that much news.
Yeah, definitely.
But just some quick news that happened relating to head coaches being hired. The Eagles have hired former OC, Colts OC, Nick Sirianni as their new head coach. And he landed in Philadelphia today. And honestly, when it comes down to it, I think there's lots of things, lots of weird conflicting emotions about this as an Eagles fan. Lots of people think that he was hired because he could be controlled by the owner and head coach, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. And that's probably
true.
That's probably a fair testament. But I think at the same time, they wanted someone who was willing to work with quarterbacks and try to get the best he could out of them. And we've seen Nick Sirianni do that with multiple quarterbacks. And I mean, the best year that Carson Wentz ever had was with Frank Reich, who was the head coach of the Colts. And they just hired his number 2 man, his highest up, his deputy, if you will, in Nick Sirianni to replace him and try to get the best you can out of Carson Wentz. And even if he doesn't get the best out of Carson Wentz as he can, he'd probably try his best with Jalen Hurts. And I'd be willing to bet he'd be somewhat successful, to say the least. So I'd say overall, as an Eagles fan, I like this hire. I think they need to get a good sort of coaching tree put around him. And they have drafted another Colts guy, actually. Forgetting the guy they hired. Mike Gannon, who as DC, and I've heard he's the former DB's coach, I believe, for the Colts, and he did a pretty good job with Xavier Rhodes, Justin Blackman, I believe, and a lot of those other corners in Indianapolis. So, yeah, overall,
Jonathan Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon, yeah.
My bad.
Overall, I'd say I'm decently happy with this hire. When it comes down to it, would I have Doug Peterson or Nick Sirianni? I would pick Doug Peterson, but this isn't a vacuum. And Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, who are clearly, I think you can say, way too over involved in the organization and putting their hands in places that their hands should not be in. But seeing as that's just the sad reality of the Eagles at the moment.
They're in the position of they need to keep their franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz. I think that was the ultimate goal this offseason. They wanted to find a coach that believed in Carson Wentz. And if the real situation was if nobody believed in Carson Wentz, then obviously the trade route would happen for him. But I think with Nick Sirianni, I think hopefully the goal here is he brings back that old Wentz, and that old Wentz is brought back. I mean, that Eagles team has high potential of making a shot at winning the division and a deep playoff run. But I think
rebuilding.
Yeah, basically. but I think you can't if Wentz doesn't, if Nick Sirianni doesn't turn around Wentz, I think Wentz will be from him. They will move on. Yeah.
I think more than anything, Amal, more than anyone fixing Carson Wentz has to realize that this season he was part of the issue. He probably wasn't the biggest problem. I'd still say that's Howie Roseman, but on the field, he was the biggest issue. Exactly. He's got to take accountability. He's got to realize you know what? I was playing pretty shitty this season, and I've got to do my best I've got to do everything in my power to take accountability. If Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers throws a pick, or if they have a bad game, they take accountability and they realize they got to get better at the game. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have bad games usually, but in general, these great quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks, they take accountability for bad games and they're willing to build upon their failures and better themselves as a player. And we haven't seen Carson Wentz done that. We've seen him rather go the opposite direction where he's completely almost lacking accountability. He's not willing to say that he's the problem, and he's not willing to improve on things that he should be improving on as an NFL quarterback. And bottom line, it's not on Nick Sirianni. This is on Carson Wentz to improve improve his stay with the Eagles and improve sort of his play and help bring this franchise back to the greatness that they were at merely 3 seasons ago.
Hopefully that Nick Sirianni rub off on Frank Reich works out. I mean, it's
Hopefully.
crazy that Doug Peterson was the man to keep Frank Reich in Philly. If Frank Reich wasn't in Philly, Frank Reich would never be a head coach in this league ever, because that Super Bowl run wouldn't happen without Frank Reich. And Frank Reich, probably if he got fired there, yeah, he would probably still be an OC at max. Yeah, I don't think he would have ever been a head coach ever. And I don't think the Eagles would ever win a Super Bowl because I'm being dead.
I mean, Frank Reich wasn't the biggest contributing.
Obviously, he wasn't the biggest. Yeah, but it's just the minor. It's the minor. It's the minor exactly. To like or somewhat major.
You need everything
pieces.
To go right to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And Frank Reich had a part in that. And if you take away that part, however small or big it was,
exactly, that's like saying if Zach Ertz wasn't playing, the Eagles aren't going to win this. Well, that's obvious, right? It's just small stuff like that. Alshon Jeffrey not playing, they're not going to win the Super. That's
Torrey
what I'm saying.
Smith not playing, like even it doesn't matter your role to win a Super Bowl. You've got to be perfect, and
exactly,
the Eagles team was, and that's what gave Frank Reich the opportunity to do this. Super Bowl time, Kansas City Chiefs at Bucs. I want to do like a really short rundown on this because I think we can dive into this game, all the little facets, all the little technical things that we could definitely talk about next week. But the Chiefs are going into Tampa Bay, and this technically isn't a home game, but it's the first time that I think a team has ever hosted the Super Bowl in their own hometown. And Tampa Bay they're going to stay in Tampa Bay for the Super Bowl. Essentially, they're going to host it
first time
officially. And yeah, I mean, honestly, if I'm just betting, I think I'd go with the Buccaneers because what the Bucs did on defense against the Packers was impressive. And the Bucs did face the Chiefs this season, and they were really bad early on in that game, but they're able to rebound and they made it a game, and they almost ended up winning late in that game. They're able to adapt to Patrick Mahomes and whatever that offense was doing, especially with Tyreek Hill, who I think had 280 yards, 250 yards, something like that game. They were able to keep him in check the second half. And that was what allowed them to rally and come back. And I think, honestly, if that game was longer than 60 minutes, the Bucs would have won that game. Like if you add another quarter, the Bucs probably would have won that first matchup. And I think just 2.0, we've seen Tom Brady had a rematch against the Saints. He won. He had a rematch against the Packers. He won. I think he's going to have a rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's going to win.
All right. So I think, so betting man, obviously, I think betting wise, Bucs are probably safer too. But I'm going to take the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs are going to win. But you obviously can't bet against Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the man. He's done it. He's done it too many times. If he wins the 7th one, that'll be major too. But I think the major thing here is I think the Chiefs are a better team. I think the Chiefs have a better. It's a very close between the Chiefs and Bucs offense. And I'm saying that because if AB comes back, I think AB will be back for the Super Bowl, considering he was just ruled out this past week. I think in 2 weeks he's questionable right now, but I think Antonio Brown will play in the Super Bowl. It's crazy that Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are both going to be playing in the Super Bowl on opposite teams. I think that's just mind blowing. I'd always expect them that they'd be on the Steelers playing for the Super Bowl. But besides that, I just think Patrick Mahomes is going to show up and play, and I think the X factor, and honestly, Super Bowl MVP, we're going to talk about this obviously next week, but I think even Super Bowl MVP prediction, I can already put it out. Tyreek Hill, I think he's going to step up. He's going to I think Murphy Bunting has to hold for his dear life in order for him to stop. He has to hold on. Carlton Davis, yeah, those guys, they're gonna get turned all the way. Like if Tyreek Hill runs a slant, it's GG's, bro. Who's stopping?
And Carlton Davis is a good DB, Amal. He's a good cornerback.
He is a good DB. He is a good DB. I mean, obviously the trash talk between him and Michael Thomas is stupid. Michael Thomas is irrelevant anyways right now. That dude is a nobody as far as I'm concerned. Michael Thomas is just as fraudulent as a wide receiver as anybody in NFL history. I think that dude I don't know what happened with him this year. He can claim that he's gotten to these injuries. So what? I mean, the dude did nothing. I hope he proves me wrong. With not Drew Brees, but with whoever the future QB is. But regardless, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be an X factor here in this game. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and I think that offense just gets the job done. And Tom Brady, I think we say that we saw a little bit in the second half of that how the age was a factor. He just threw some wild throws that didn't make any sense. And I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Tom Brady today. So, and if Josh Allen couldn't have that type of game, and he had Stephon Diggs as his target, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I think Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Chris Godwin is probably I don't know who's even better. I think they're both around the same caliber as receiver too. But those guys, I think Diggs is better than those guys. I think it's close, but I think I'd still have to have Stephon Diggs. But even there, they held Diggs pretty well. I'm just more confident with the Chiefs, man. But you can never bet against Tom Brady. So it'll definitely be an interesting game. Brady against Mahomes. If the Chiefs win here, this will be the first back-to-back Super Bowl winning team since Tom Brady. So that would be something for sure. And this is the first Super Bowl matchup as well between the previous two Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. So it's another fun fact there for you guys. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game, and we'll probably get more into it. We'll definitely get more into it next week, and we'll probably even have an opportunity to give a chance to make our full-on predictions. I just gave a little bit of it, but
a tidbit, just a little snippet of what's to come in the future. Yeah, you got anything else to say before we head out of here, Mo?
Yeah, nothing else really. We didn't really talk about Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford requested a trade. I think that was probably the major news I think of this week. That
honestly, let's just talk about that right now. Why not?
I think that's probably the only major news. I think. Yeah, and then Dan Campbell hiring, but I think that's stuff you don't even really need to talk about. Yeah, but yeah, go for it.
We can skim over that real quick. Dan Campbell got hired for the Detroit Lions, and he came out and he had a pretty passionate rant almost about biting kneecaps and all that. And lots of people are saying he's not fit to be a head coach and all that. But honestly, I just see someone who's very passionate about football and someone who's more of a football guy than he is a verbal guy. And that's just my take on it. I've got to watch his press conference and I've got to see what he is. But I think he's setting a strong sort of mentality and a foundation and trying to set a football culture there in Detroit, which hasn't been there since forever, in all honesty. Like, I don't think they've ever had a culture.
Yeah, well said.
So yeah, that's just my take on that one real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing else to really say. I don't know that. I'll be honest, I don't know that much about him. But yeah, we can move on to, I guess, the major news. Matt Stafford has officially said that he is they will part ways and they will seek a trade partner. And they've said, I think Matt Stafford has his eyes clear as day on Indy. That's a report that was made by Jeremy Fowler.
And also the Niners.
And the Niners. Those are the two teams. The same two teams we talked about for Aaron Rodgers, I think you could say for Matt Stafford, because I think both of us were very high on Matt Stafford. I think you particularly even more. You made a video why the Lions shouldn't trade Matt Stafford, but I think now you can see
now they have to for him.
They have to do it for him. Now it was for the franchise. No, you have to trade it for him, because I think Matt Stafford will go down as one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time. And it's sad because Matt Stafford's never had a top 10 O-line. Matt Stafford's never had a top 10 defense. Matt Stafford has never had 1,000-yard rushing running back. I mean, Matt Stafford has only had 100-yard rushing running back one time in a game, and that was DeAndre Swift. So I can't really say this enough, but Matt Stafford needs help, man. And he had all the help in the beginning of his career with Megatron, but Megatron didn't have a defense then.
They didn't have they haven't had a
They didn't have a team. They didn't have a team outside of that duo, man. They had Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones is always reliable. Sure, he is actually reliable. I'm not gonna lie, but I think
a beast in his own regard.
They had Golden Tate as well. Golden Tate was also reliable. But
They've
outside
had
of
wide
those,
receivers for him, but they've never
but
had a
outside,
team
but they
and a
never had a
coach.
team. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think if Matt Stafford was on the Niners, subtracting Jimmy G, that team is probably going to go like 13-3, 14-2 in the regular season, barring injuries again. I think that team is stacked as well. If he's on the Colts, what 11-5 this season? I think they go 12-4. I think that's realistic, and it's just the fact that I think I think Matt Stafford's just that he's just that good, man. I think he's a star quarterback for sure. I don't know if he's
I'd say top
there.
10.
He's top 10. I think he's probably he's probably the border of like 8 to 10. I think you could definitely say that, man. And I think the same thing for Aaron Rodgers. I think you have to relook your quarterback situation if you're looking at Matthew Stafford, because I think this guy, he's still relatively young. I think he's 32. So I think
I mean, you could definitely build a team for him.
you can build a team for him
for
now. And
half
I
a
think,
decade,
and
probably.
obviously you don't have to trade it as much. I think he's probably worth maybe a first, maybe 2 firsts, maybe. But I think that's probably around what his value is, depending on how much in need are you of him.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think those 2 teams make the most sense, and I think those are the only 2 teams that make sense. So because Matt Stafford's he's in a win now mode, right? So I think those are the only teams that can do it. Obviously, the Saints can do it, but the Saints can they have no assets to give. So they don't have cap.
Negative $100 million in cap space. So the Saints would be my dream.
The Saints are screwed.
Every single quarterback.
They're screwed. Yeah, they can't do. They are screwed because they pay morons like Michael Thomas $20 million a year.
I've done some of the math on them all, and I think there's no way for them to get underneath the cap or over the cap, I guess you could say, underneath the cap without getting rid of multiple players. Like, it's just flat. They've got to get rid of players.
Will they be able to re-sign Jameis?
I don't even know. Like, it's just the whole situation there.
It's crazy.
It was a win now scenario for Drew Brees, and they could never get it done. And now they're facing the brunt of that. But Matt Stafford, Indy, San Francisco. Those are the 2 spots. Anything else you want to say before we head out of here, Mo?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's just very small things. Marquise Pouncey, 9-time Pro Bowler, probably the best center. Yep. Probably the best center of my lifetime. Actually, I think Jeff Saturday was. I'd take that back. But one of the best centers of all time has chosen to retire. And former All-Pro tight end Greg Olsen has also chosen to retire. I think Greg Olsen's had a hell of a career. I think you can make an argument he's top 10, top 15 all-time tight end. Great career. Marquise Pouncey, definitely a top 10 center of all time. The dude is a cornerstone for that Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. So, I mean, Greg Olsen was with when he was with the Bears, and then he moved to the Seahawks. He moved to a bunch of teams at the end of the day, Panthers. But I mean, two great legends. Both I expect will be in Canton one day.
Yeah. Shout out to those guys, and shout out to a lot of players who have retired. Jeff Saturday, one of them that you mentioned. Anthony Costanzo, I think, was the one.
Okay, Anthony Costanzo retired.
Yeah. I mean, lots of players
Phil
have retired.
Rivers, of course.
Shout out to all those legends. But yeah, that's all I've got to say for me. Episode 52 of this Fleaflicker NFL show. Pretty good episode in my opinion. Pretty humble opinion as well. Thanks for listening to episode 52, and peace out. Bye. Adios.